When I moved out of my big shop, I left behind the desk and shelving I had there since they were just way too big for my new office, which will be in the second bedroom of our tiny house. And I've got a lot of plans for this space, including a huge built-in unit, but first I needed to get a new desk built. And I had a few requirements for this desk, which really dictated how I designed the desk. First, the desk had to have room for rack-mounted gear, which I use for recording these voiceovers, as well as some music production. Second, there had to be a slide-out tray for a MIDI keyboard. Third, I wanted the whole thing to be on a standing desk base since I love being able to stand at my desk during long sessions at the computer. And fourth and finally, the desk couldn't feature any wood grain. And this last requirement might sound a little weird considering I'm a woodworker, but there's a good reason for this requirement. If you followed along with my Not So Tiny House build series, you'll know I went with plywood walls throughout a lot of the space. And overall, I love how this aesthetic turned out, but unfortunately the walls didn't end up looking the way I wanted in this office area. The tiny house project was during the peak craziness of the COVID pandemic, and that meant purchasing building materials was a nightmare. It took about 3 months for the pre-finished birch plywood I ordered to come in, and when it finally did, about a third of it was much darker than I expected. I ended up installing these darker panels in this office space, and that combined with the darker oak floors made for a pretty wood-heavy space. And because of that, I wanted the projects I'm building for this room to help break up this kind of wood grain overload, hence my no wood grain rule for this desk. Anyway, after modeling the desk in SketchUp, I landed on using plywood with a laminate veneer on both faces, and I just so happened to have one sheet of this ultralight hexaply left, which I figured would be perfect. Now, if you can't get this kind of plywood locally, it's a pretty simple process to add laminate to plywood, and I've covered this process in a few projects in the past, which I'll link to below. I started by breaking down the sheet of plywood using my trusty track saw, and if you're in a smaller shop space like mine, I think a track saw is really the best method for this. Trying to wrestle a full-size sheet of plywood around a tight shop is a nightmare, and I think bringing the tool to the work makes way more sense in this case. Recently, I made a new addition to my track saw setup, adding these TSO parallel guides, and I can't believe I didn't get these sooner. They make the process of getting consistent rip or crosscuts on plywood a total breeze, and they can be installed and removed from the track in a few seconds. When ripping plywood, I always make my first rip cut over width and then make a second cut at the final width to remove the factory edge. And this is especially important on veneered or laminated plywood like this since the edges are usually pretty ragged. Once my rip cuts were done, I swapped over to crosscut mode and added my TSO guide rail square, which I've been using for years. Once again, I cut off the factory edge before cross-cutting the panel to final size. I can also use my parallel guides to help make these crosscuts, and I made all but 2 of my cuts using the track saw. And I could have cut these smaller pieces with the track saw, but it was just easier to make these cuts on the table saw. With that, I had all the pieces for the main desk structure cut, so now it was time for some joinery. And as you might have seen in my last video, I'm in the process of testing this new Craig Edge, which is basically a budget version of the Festival Domino. And Craig sent me this pre-production unit to test out, but this is not sponsored, and they are not paying me to use this tool. All of these opinions are my own. Thankfully, this desk build would be just as easy using dowels or even pocket screws instead of loose tenons, and I purposely designed this desk as an easy DIY project for all of you creatives out there. That said, it did take me a minute to wrap my head around just how I was going to go about cutting the joinery, since almost none of the pieces on this desk are flush with each other. And I made the mistake of rushing into what I thought might be a good option, but ended up taking a step back and rethinking my strategy. So instead of clamping everything together and marking lines while the pieces were clamped up, I just marked layout lines on the pieces individually. I started by joining the monitor shelf with the side panels, and after marking my layout lines, I set up the edge with the 5mm bit. And this is really the ideal size when working with 3/4 inch plywood like this, because you can just leave your depth setting at 15mm for all of your cuts without risking accidentally cutting through the face of your pieces, which is definitely easy to do when you have this many mortises to cut. I cut the mortises on the ends of the monitor shelf, and you can see where I had to patch the holes from my first attempt. Before cutting the mortises on the side panels, I adjusted the material thickness setting on the edge from 3/4 inch to 1.25 inches, since I wanted a 1/2 inch offset between the edges of the pieces. I also added the support foot, which helps keep the tool stable on thinner stock like this plywood. Cutting the mortises went super quick, and I initially cut all of these with the tight mortise setting, but ended up coming back and widening all but the first mortise just to make assembly a little easier. After cutting the mortises, I could do a dry fit, and unfortunately, something was wrong. Why is that not 1/2 inch offset? 3/4 plus 1/2 inch is 1 1/4. It's not really the offset I wanted. So somehow changing the material thickness by 1/2 inch didn't equate to a 1/2 inch offset, which I still don't really understand, but I just rolled with it. Let's take a second to talk about the sponsor of this week's video, Trade Coffee. So if you guys have been following the channel for a while, you'll know that I am a huge coffee nerd, and one of my favorite things is finding and trying new coffee roasters from around the country, and I've been using Trade to do that for years. Right now I'm drinking this anaerobic fermented Ethiopian coffee from Dune. It's got tons of fruit notes and it's perfect for summer. I've been brewing it on my Hario Switch, and that little bit of extra immersion versus my V60 really pulls out some more of the sweetness. And I don't think this is a bag I would have stumbled across myself, and that is the whole point of Trade. So Trade spent a decade building relationships with some of the best coffee roasters across the country, and so the coffees that show up on their site are matched exactly to your taste rather than just based on what's around you. You can tell them exactly how you brew your coffee, and they'll send you 3 different coffees from 3 roasters, one by one. And everything's roasted to order and ships straight from the roaster for peak freshness. So if you want to try Trade Coffee for yourself, right now your first bag is free. Check out the link in the video description below or scan this QR code. Big thanks again to Trade Coffee for sponsoring this week's video, and let's get back to work. Next up was the joinery that was really messing with my brain, and that was for the main desktop panel. I needed this panel to be exactly 5 3/8 of an inch from the monitor panel, and I don't think I've ever located a panel like this with loose tenons. Thankfully, I could reference the king of Festool explanation, Sedge, and after watching his video on the subject, I had a pretty good handle on the process. Sedge's recommendation is to cut the joinery for this kind of joint with the top surface of the panels touching, or top to top, as he calls it. So I laid the desktop face down on the side panel and lined up the end of the panel with the line I had marked previously. I also needed to set in the ends of the panel by 1/2 inch on each side, and once I had the panel located, I clamped it in place. Next, I marked some layout lines for my loose tenons, and then I could get to cutting. First, I made the vertical plunge cuts, lining up the center line on the bottom of the edge with my layout lines. Once that was done, I could cut the mortises on the end of the desktop using the bottom of the tool as my reference surface again. And I did fold the plate down for this, but I only used it to center the tool on my layout lines. The plate wasn't contacting the surface. The reference surface was still the bottom side of the tool. Once those were cut, I added some tenons and did a dry fit, and as you can see, I ended up with perfect alignment on the desktop. I repeated the process on the other end of the desktop using the same top-to-top method, and this was so much simpler than I thought it was going to be. Also, you can use the same method for dowel joinery depending on the dowel jig you're using. Next, I could repeat the same process to add the dividers for the rack mount gear, and again, these needed to be spaced exactly 19 inches apart, since that's the standard spacing for rack mounted equipment. Once again, the top-to-top method really helped me keep all this straight, and I transferred my layout lines from the bottom of the monitor shelf to the top of the desktop to make sure everything lined up perfectly. I got all the mortises cut, and then I could do a dry fit to make sure everything looked good, and thankfully, it did. Now, obviously, those side panels were looking a little blocky at that point, but I like to cut all my joinery before adding any kind of decorative angles to parts like this, and now that the joinery was done, I could get the panel shaped. I decided to make a template for this, and honestly, I'm not sure it's worth the trouble when you've only got 2 parts, but it did make things a little less stressful since any mistakes would be cut into the template and not the side panels. I referenced my dimensions to lay out the cuts, and I should mention that I do have plans available for this desk if you're interested in building one for yourself. And I really think this is the perfect desk for creatives, whether you're into music production, video editing, podcasting, or even gaming. And I'll link to the plans in the description in case you're interested. I pulled out my track saw for these cuts, and I definitely need to get a smaller foam panel for making these kinds of cuts so I don't cut into my new assembly table. I couldn't quite complete the cuts with the track saw, so I came back with my Suizan pull saw to make the rest of the cut, then I cleaned up that inside corner with my Suizan chisel. And I've honestly been kind of avoidant of this kind of hand tool work for years, but it's much easier than I expected, as long as you keep your tools sharp. Once that corner was cleaned up, I added a 1/2 inch radius to the outside corners using this corner radius jig I 3D printed. And this is one of those things that a lot of people would just eyeball with a sander, but I think you get much better results when you can use a template like this. Unfortunately, I had to do just that on a couple of the corners since they weren't a right angle, but that was easy enough using a random orbit sander and some hand sanding. With that, the side panel template was ready to go, and next I removed the excess material from the actual side panels using the bandsaw and jigsaw. I used double-sided tape to attach the template to the side panel, and this is by far my favorite double-sided tape. It's got a super strong hold, but doesn't leave behind any sticky residue, and I'll link to it in the description, along with everything else I used on this build. Next, I got a spiral compression flush trim bit set up on my router table, and then got to cutting, which thankfully went smoothly. Another thing I love about this tape is it's sticky enough to be reused a handful of times, so I could stick it to the second side panel and get it cut next. And this is the kind of project that would be a breeze on the CNC, but it's really cool to be able to build this kind of thing with simpler tools. And you could absolutely use a handheld router here. I just figured the dust collection would be better on the router table. With that done, the side panels were shaped, so it was time to start prepping for finish. First, I went around and wiped off the layout lines, and you might think working with this kind of laminated plywood makes the build process really easy, but it's actually pretty hard to be working with your final finished surface throughout the project. It means that any dings or dents will be visible in your final project, and you can't sand surfaces flush, and this is part of the reason I offset the pieces, since any minor discrepancies won't be noticeable. The cut edges on this laminated plywood are extremely sharp enough to cut you. So an edge profile is definitely a must here. And I went with a light chamfer and then followed that up by sanding the edges and chamfers with 180 grit. Once again, having that laminate already applied made this a little tricky because the black dust generated from sanding the chamfers would get caked into the ingrain of the plywood edges. I repeated the process on the rest of the pieces, and then it was time for finish, which should have been a simple process. Unfortunately, the finish I decided to use, this Natura 1 coat, had sealed the containers shut to the point that I had to basically destroy them to get at the finish. And after mangling the cans, I mixed up the oil and hardener and got it applied to the plywood edges using a white Scotch-Brite pad. And I did my best to keep the oil off of the laminate, but thankfully it was easy to wipe off any excess after letting the finish soak into the edges for a few minutes. While the finish dried, I got to work on the one part I hadn't cut out yet, the keyboard tray. Again, I referenced my dimensions drawing here, and after getting it laid out, I moved over to the table saw to make my first cut. I decided on a plunge cut here, which can be a little dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, but as long as you keep the piece stationary while raising the blade through the piece, this is easy enough. I made the angled cuts with the track saw, and I'm loving this match fit assembly table I built for this kind of work. It's so easy to clamp parts, and I've got an entire build video on that project if you want to check that out. Once again, I couldn't finish the cut with the track saw, so I came back with the same Ryoba saw and chisel to clean things up. I could also use the vise functionality of my assembly table for the first time, which worked out great. This was kind of a heavy cut for the chisel, so I got a little tear out, but overall this went smoothly, and honestly, this will never be seen once the MIDI keyboard tray is in place. And in case you're wondering, this little angled cutout gives your legs more clearance under the desk, since the keyboard tray added a lot of thickness to the overall desk. Once those corners were cleaned up, I got the edges chamfered and sanded, and then I could add the same finish to the keyboard tray. The finish was mostly dry to the touch after an hour, so I could get the desk glued up, which thankfully went really smoothly. I just took my time adding the glue to the mortises and then adding the loose tenons. Glue doesn't stick to this laminate, so I made sure the mortise and tenons had enough glue since they'll be doing all of the work here. Once the monitor shelf was installed, I added some clamps, and the only long reach clamps I have are these comically large F-style clamps. And I always think these are overkill until I need to clamp something like this. Next, I got the side panels installed, and these went on smoothly too, with everything lining up like it was supposed to. I added plenty of clamps to tighten up all the joints, and then I cleaned up any glue squeeze out before leaving the glue to dry for a few hours. With the desk assembled, next up was adding the hardware. And I had purchased these rack rails which were twice as long as I needed, so I could cut them in half and save some money on the hardware costs. That said, I'm not sure it was worth the trouble of having to cut them down and then clean them up to save what amounted to $8, but that's what I had to do. Next, I got the rack rails installed on the desk, and this process is always more awkward than I expected to be. I wanted the rails to be flush with the front edge of the vertical dividers and parallel to each other, so I used a level to help get their positioning dialed in. I also used a 1/16 inch spacer to set the rails up off the desktop, which just gives a little bit more wiggle room when installing and removing the rack mounted gear. And there wasn't a reference for where to install the left and rightmost rails, and this is where using the level really came in handy. After getting the rack rails installed, the next piece of hardware to work on was the sliding MIDI keyboard tray. I've used these keyboard tray drawer slides for this type of thing a few times in the past, and they work great since they have a detent which helps lock them in the open position when using the keyboard. Locating these on the desk was also a challenge since I wasn't using the angle brackets included with the slides. Instead, I screwed these directly to the inside of the side panels. And these slides don't come apart like your typical drawer slide, and there wasn't any adjustment built into the slide hardware, so I just did my best to get everything lined up with my layout lines and got the slides screwed in place. Once the slides were installed, I got the tray cut to final width, and I'd left it slightly oversized just in case any of my dimensions ended up a little off. Because these slides don't come apart, I also had to get creative with locating the tray, and I ended up using some scraps of plywood to space the tray up off my workbench and just slid out the tray little by little, adding screws as I went. I also ended up drilling an extra hole to add a third screw on each side, since this tray was spanning almost 5 feet between the slides. The tray seemed to be working well, so next I could move on to the desk base. And I went with a standing desk base from Uplift for this desk, and I needed to use this style of offset base to work with my design. Otherwise, the keyboard tray would have interfered with the mounting rails on a more standard standing desk base. After assembling the base, I got everything moved out to the tiny house for final assembly. And at this point, I hadn't done a test fit of the base with the desktop, but thankfully, everything fit perfectly. I got the paddle switch temporarily installed so I could raise the desk to its max height, which made working on the underside much easier. I got the base centered on the underside and then screwed it in place, making sure to pre-drill the holes to prevent blowing out the plywood. Once that was done, I spent some time getting all of my equipment set up on the desk, and it was so nice to finally have a dialed-in desk setup again. And I of course tried out the MIDI keyboard after getting things wired up, and unfortunately, there was an issue.
Well, we've got a bit of a bounce here. Let me show you.
So as it turned out, this span was a little too much for the plywood tray, especially since this smaller keyboard was putting all the force in the center of the tray, and this led to an unacceptable level of flex when playing. Thankfully, I had an idea for an easy fix, so I removed the tray and brought it back to the garage. I figured adding some kind of back panel or spine would virtually eliminate any of this flex, so I cut down one of the offcuts to the same width, then I got a dado stack set up on my table saw. And I could have just screwed this spine to the back edge of the tray, but I figured setting the tray into a dado would add even more rigidity, so that's what I went with. After adding the dado, I chamfered and sanded the edges, also sanding the back edge of the tray to remove the finish, since the glue wouldn't have stuck to the plywood otherwise. I somehow didn't record the actual glue up, but I think you can imagine what I'm doing here. After the glue dried, I reinstalled the keyboard tray, and as expected, the flex was gone, which was a huge relief. I also added this cable chain which tidies up any of the cables coming from the desk, and this is especially useful on this type of desk since I'll eventually have XLR cables, Ethernet cables, and more later on. So I've been using the desk for about a week now, and I am absolutely loving it. Having everything set up like this allows me to record at a moment's notice, and I'm even recording this voiceover you're listening to at the desk. And I'll link to all the tools, materials, and equipment I used on this project in the video description below, along with the plans for this desk. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and get subscribed, and until next time, happy building.